right, so welcome to Math 9. We are going to be working largely from this textbook right here that you should have in front of you. Your cover may look a little bit differently, but it's Math Makes Sense 9, so you can have that to refer to, but I do have these notes here for you to fill in, as I mentioned. And so you won't really need the textbook a lot during the lessons, but I would suggest that you could have them open if you have room on your desk to look at the examples, and I will be flipping back and forth a little bit, maybe talking about the text, but we'll mostly be working with these notes here, okay? So again, we're starting in chapter 2 here today, and we're going to be talking about powers and exponent laws. So if you want to go into your textbook and follow along here, you can. It's about page 50. Page 50 is where we're going to start in your textbook. All right. So what we're going to learn about here in this first section, in this 2.1 section, is we're going to look at using powers to show repeated multiplication. Now you don't have to fill anything out here, but what I'm going to encourage you to do is that once we go through the lessons, this might be somewhat of a summary page for you. So this might be something that you're going to want to come back to, this very first page, and you're going to want to put some examples in here. And you're going to maybe want to put some definitions here for these key words, okay? So as we go through, they will be in your notes, but I would encourage you to also summarize everything. This could be like a little bit of a cue sheet when you study for your test, okay? You can't bring this into your test, this page, but this can be a start of what you might want to include on a cue sheet, okay? So we'll also be talking about evaluating powers with exponent 0. We'll write numbers using powers of 10. We'll use order of operations with exponents, and we'll use exponent laws to simplify and evaluate expressions. Okay? So that's actually the whole chapter. We'll start with 2.1, but this is sort of what you learn in the whole chapter. Here's a list. I won't read them all, but these are some key words that we'll be learning about. You should know, you should be able to explain each of these words by the end of the chapter. So that's the key words. All right. Were there any extra notes packages that got handed out, or did everybody get one? We're good? Okay. All right. I'll print another one off for you, Ms. Walker. Yeah, later. Okay, preparation for 2.1. Let's review some things. Multiplying integers, okay? Multiplying integers. Now, I'm not sure where we need to start with all this review, but I will go over I'll try and go over everything, okay? Integers, okay? Integers are positive and negative whole numbers. So we're not talking about decimals or fractions. We're talking about positive whole numbers like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and negative whole numbers. Whole numbers include 0. Positive, negative 0 doesn't really make sense, but 0 would be a whole number, part of the integers as well. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, so on, okay? And there are rules that you guys should have learned before about what the signs are, whether they're positive or negative, when you multiply. Okay, so there'll be some blanks here, and again, I think we're on the second page now. For those of you that were on the second page, it should look just like this of your notes package there. Now, where I've put the blanks, you can fill in the blanks from the notes that you see up here. So, how do we remember what the signs are, either positive or negative, when we multiply? Well, when integers have the same sign, their product is positive. Okay? So when they have the same sign, the product is positive. Now, product is the result when we multiply. Okay? So those are the same. The product is the result when you multiply. So 6 times negative 3. Okay? That is multiplication because of this little times here, right? And the answer would be the product. So think about product as what you produce, right? It's something you produce. So a product in math specifically is what you produce when you multiply. It's the product. So if we have a positive integer, like positive 6, and lots of times they won't show the little positive plus sign there. They'll just leave it blank. If it's blank, it's positive. And if it's negative, they'll have a little minus sign. And lots of times it'll be inside brackets like this. So there's no confusion about times subtraction. That's a negative, that's not a subtraction, right? So they'll put those inside brackets. So a positive integer times a negative integer, that's going to be a negative value. And then, of course, the 6 times 3 is 18. So this is going to be negative 18. Over here on the right is a little bit of a chart for you to help you remember. And so when we multiply a negative times a negative, the answer is positive. You see how the column and the row line up there? Negative times a negative is a positive. A negative times a positive is negative, and so on. So when the signs are the same, the product is positive. When the signs are different, their product is negative. Okay, so that was the case here. Positive times a negative is negative. Over here, signs are the same. Negative and negative, the answer is positive. Okay? Any questions there? Now, feel free to ask questions. All through this course, please ask questions. If it's it'll be a great question most of the time, okay? Sometimes I just don't know what you don't know. So if you're having trouble with something, feel free to ask. I'll answer the question, or I'll say, you know what, the answer is coming to that one, or I'll talk to you later about it maybe. I'll make the decision whether it's good for us to answer that question in the class, but most of the time your questions are perfect for the lesson, okay? So you guys okay with that? You remember that? Everything's good? Okay? If you remember with Ms. McGaw last week, she was talking about, what kind of memory things can you use? So like pair positive, this might be a phrase that you might remember to help you distinguish this or to help you remember this. Like pair positive, kind of the two P's there. Like pair positive. Like pair positive. That's a phrase that rolls off the tongue really easy. That one might be one that you want to write down or use to remember. Like pair positive. Okay. All right, so for the following questions, first, predict if the product will be positive or negative, then solve. So I'm going to do some of these with you, and then I'll give you a few minutes to do the rest, okay? So, first of all, 7 times 4, are these integers positive or negative? Positive. Positive, very good. So if they're both positive, what's the product going to be? Positive. Positive, good. And what's 7 times 4? 28, right. Okay. So positive 28. Now, if you just wrote this like just 28 like that, I'm okay with that. Probably positive date this all. Yeah. So this is okay because we are assuming that no sign is positive. But if you want to write a positive sign in front of there, that's perfect as well. Okay. What about C? Now let's go down to C. Is this going to be positive or negative when we multiply these two integers? Negative. Good, because they're different signs. Here's a negative and there's a positive. Very good. So what's 9 times 10 now? 90. Awesome. Easy, right? What about E? Positive or negative? Positive. Very good. Positive. What's 3 times 5? 15. Good. And finally, what's the product going to be? Positive or negative? Negative. And 8 times 2 is 16. Very good. All right. So I know we just came off a long summer, and I'm sure that some of you, in your spare time have been studying the multiplication tables. I know that probably some of you have been doing that, this summer. I'm just joking. But if you're not very good at multiplication, this kind of stuff, you might want to review that, okay? So we want to get you good at mental math, multiplication, division, that kind of thing, okay? So single digit multiplications, you should know those pretty quick, okay? So you might want to review that, look up a video, do some worksheets or whatever. Please go over your multiplication tables. If you struggle with this, your math homework's going to take you twice as long, okay? All right, I tell you what, why don't you do B, D, F, and H on your own? Maybe some of you have already. But go ahead and write down your answers there, and I will show you in a second the answers that I get, and we can compare. So take a moment and do that. All right, are those the answers you got, or did I make a mistake there? And sometimes I will make a mistake on purpose, so please double check my work there. Is there any mistakes up there, or is that what you got? You think that's right? Okay, opposite signs, negative. 3 times 6 is 18. Same signs, positive. 5 times 9 is 45. Opposite signs, negative. 2 times 5 is 10. Opposite signs, negative. 4 times 3, 12. Awesome. Okay, I think I did that right. Let's keep moving on. Any questions about that, though? We're good? All right, easy, right? Easy. This is baby stuff, isn't it? Oh, isn't that great? We're getting it. Okay. Multiply more than 2 integers. So what happens if we have more than 2 integers that we're multiplying? Well, we multiply the integers just from left to right, sort of one pair at a time, okay? So first of all, let me just show you that there are different ways that these products can be shown, or that this multiplication can be shown. So if this is throwing you off, I don't know how many of you have seen this, this little dot before. Have any of you seen like a solid black dot in between numbers like that before? Yeah, you have. So that means multiplication. And to tell you the truth, in high school, you're not going to see me use an X for multiplication. Pretty much never, okay? So I know that 1, or -1, right, times -2, this is the way we might see it. But the reason why we don't use X's for multiplication is because X is the most popular variable in algebra when we want to use a letter variable. So I'll teach you all about that. You guys know about variables, but X is often used, so we don't want any confusion. So we don't usually use the X's. Instead, we use little dots like this, and it's not like a decimal point on the bottom. It's not a hollow dot like a degree sign. That means something different. You'll find out in grade 11. But this is a solid dot in the middle. That means multiplication. And as well, you'll see down here, if there are no signs in between, if it's just brackets right next to each other, that also means multiplication. Okay? All right? Okay, so in this case, I'll just erase this now, but in this case, what we do is we focus on the first two, left to right, focus on the first two, we find out what that product is first, and then we continue on and multiply by this one. So what's -1 times -2? It's +2, right, negative times negative, 2 times 1, 2, times -3. So now we use this product and we multiply by what's left over. So now we move on to the right. And what's this product right here? It's a -6, very good. Also, just to let you know, I also will expect you to circle your answers, show your work, and circle your answers. Now in grade 9, and grade 10 too, usually we're working a lot on showing work and using good process, okay? Because remember that calculus slide that I showed you earlier? Okay, when you get to grade 12 calculus, some of those questions are going to be a page long or more. You're going to have calculation after calculation. So you can't do that in your head. It's impossible. So you're going to want to show your steps and write down everything so that you don't miss a negative sign in a whole page of work, right? So trust me when I say, please show your work, even though you can do it in your head, even though I don't know what I did, I just punched it in the calculator. Well, the process and noting that process and being particular about that process is something we need to learn in high school, okay? So take the extra few seconds, and I was this way in high school too. It's like, I don't have time to show all my work. Well, you can't really afford to make a bunch of mistakes either. So you may as well just show your work and take the extra few seconds so you can get more things right and correct, okay? So let's take a look at this one. Well, this is going to be, first two here, that's going to be +2. And we're going to multiply that by -3 and this by -4. So this is me showing all of my work, okay? And that took me, 1.5 seconds to write this down. I'm going to go -6 times -4 now, right? Because I'm doing this one, gives me -6. And then -6 times -4, that's going to be a +24. Good. And circle your answers. Always circle your answers too. I don't want to half a page of work and then me have to try and find out what your final answer is. So you declaring what your final answer is pretty important as well. So show your work, circle your answers. You can get into that habit right away. Awesome. Okay? All right. Now, having said all that, for something as simple as this, you may be able to do some mental math here, right? So I'm okay with that as well if you do some steps, if you combine some steps and do mental math. A lot of these things will be showing all your work. But for this one particular, for these examples, this is so easy. You could probably do a lot of these in your head. So if you skimp a little bit on your work for these particular ones, I'm okay with that. But that'll become more important later. But okay, so 3, 4, these are the same. This is the same example, so I won't do this one again. But here's just a little note that if there's no sign in between, that also means multiplication. Okay, so if you noticed in our examples here with more than 2 multiplication integers, that the signs still are important. but how do we work that out with the final product sign? Well, notice that if you multiply these two together, that's going to be positive, times this one, that's going to be negative, times another positive is going to be negative. So if you take a look at how many negative signs you're you're multiplying, that will also tell you what the product is going to be. So I don't think I have that in my notes later. Let me just check. No, I don't think so. So let's write this down here. If you multiply, so just jot this down, multiplying odd number of negatives, so that's the negative signs, odd number of negatives, equals, what's that going to be, positive or negative? What do we say with this one? Yeah, it's going to be negative. Okay? And then multiplying even number of negatives, is positive. All right, so odd number of negatives is negative, even number of negatives is positive. And you'll be looking for that, you know, every math class you take. That'll be something that it'll just come automatically like that for you down the road. So this one's going to be, we said negative, because it's got an odd number of negatives. 3 negatives we're multiplying together. And then because we don't have room, I'll just show you, we can do this in our heads. So we'll do some mental math for these ones, okay? So this is going to be a positive 6 times a negative 1 is going to be negative 6 times a positive 1, still negative 6. So are you okay with that? That the answer is negative 6?
Yeah.
You okay? You good with that? All right. Let's do B here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 negatives. So guess what? My answer is going to be positive. Okay, there's an even number of negatives, so it's going to be positive. And then let's do the first 2. So let's just take a look at the numbers because we've got the sign figured out. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2, 8. 8 times 2, 16. Okay, 16. Now, hopefully you got a hold of that. Okay, so there's 2, and then that answer times 2, then that answer times 2, and then this answer times 2. Okay. All right. Okay, why don't you go ahead and do C and D on your own? Just take a half a minute and do C and D on your own, and I'll show you the answer in a second. Is D on your paper there? Did it get cut off? It's on the next page? Oh, okay. Okay. All right, check out those last 2 answers. Did you get negative 16 for C? All right, did you get positive 18 for D? Okay. Now, I didn't mention about if they're all positive, the answer is positive, right? If they're all positive, the answer is positive. So, yeah, the only question is how many negatives there are. If they're all positive, then the answer is positive, obviously. Okay. Okay, so any questions on that little review, multiplying integers? Any questions about that? Okay, so 8 practice questions. Once you get those copied down into your notes, you can do those. You have about 5 minutes of class here left. Have those done for tomorrow. If you want to, if you want to check your answers with a neighbor when you're done or whatever, please go ahead and do that. That's a good idea too. You guys get those done? Yeah?